Hey guys, so I've noticed my Nitya and a few of the other Nityananda supporters using Nityananda as a greeting and as a way to say goodbye. Now I don't really know how long they've been doing it for, maybe they've been doing it for a lot longer than I've noticed them doing it, but this is something that is also used by other Hindu sects, specifically the one I'm familiar with, which is ISKCON or Krishna consciousness. So in ISKCON, they say hello and they say, Hare Krishna, or to say goodbye, they say Hare Krishna or Hare Bol as a way to praise Krishna or God. And what I see Nityananda supporters and the Nityananda cult doing is kind of stealing that kind of aspect either of ISKCON or maybe some other sect that does it, or just maybe this is just a Hindu thing that I don't know about, but stealing that idea and using it to promote Nityananda as a god and pushing him us on a pedestal as above everybody else, because if you repeat somebody's name over and over when you say hello and goodbye to them, then that's something you become something that you worship. So that's what they are doing with this phrase, and they'll make some excuses for it, like we're only doing this because the word Nityananda has all these other meanings. Well, most Sanskrit names have other meanings that are really, really nice. Why are you specifically using that word and not any of the other myriad of names, or maybe the name of an actual god? Because Nityananda wants to be a god. He wants to be praised as a god. He wants to be worshipped as a god. He's an egotist, So of course you're gonna have to use his name to greet everybody. But actually, what made me when I noticed this, well, the idea I got is to compare Nityananda's cult and ISKCON and Krishna consciousness and just see how the two size up. Because I realized that there's going to be a lot of Westerners that are going to rebel against the old boring religions of the West, Christianity or what have you, and they're going to go seek out something a little bit more exotic, like Hinduism, Buddhism, or any other religion out there, or something more spiritual. And it actually makes me like laugh a little bit inside when I see all these hippies going to an ISKCON temple, or pursuing Buddhism, or pursuing Hinduism, because these are very conservative practices. Buddhism, Hinduism are very conservative practices, and they're very, for the most part, family orientated. And although all these hippies aren't probably following the principles to the greatest extent, they're probably trying to twist the ideologies to fit themselves into it. Even though I know Hinduism is fairly patriarchal, they'll try to push themselves and promote women, and why can't women be gurus and all this stuff. And of course, women, I think, in general, women are not gurus. I think in ISKCON, women are not gurus, certainly. But, they'll still try to infiltrate and try to change it. But nonetheless, the way I see it is they're still doing something that's good. They're still doing something that's conservative. They're going on the right path. Even if they're dismissing Christianity for a very, very silly reason, they're still doing something conservative, which is better than leftism. I've always said I would personally rather live in a country that's controlled by Muslims, by Islam, because I just personally have more in common with someone who follows Islam than I do with a leftist feminist. So what's happening in Sweden, if Sweden gets taken over by Islam, that's actually a step up, the way I see it, from feminism and liberalism and leftism over there. Because if I had to choose a totalitarian dictatorship running the country, of course I'd rather have none of it. I'd rather give people the freedom to do whatever they want. But if I had to choose one or the other, I would choose a religious totalitarianism over like a leftist, communist, socialist one, right? So that being said, I wanted to see and compare the two, so ISKCON and Nityananda's cult. And if you had to choose, if you want to choose something, which one would you go for? Well, the major difference between the two, the way I see it, is ISKCON's main focus is the worship of God, it's the worship of Krishna. It's all centered around that, all the singing they do, all the devotional service they perform, it's all centered about worshiping God. Now, yes, the founder, Srila Prabhupada, they've got some statues, I think, of him up in their temples, and they do have some songs they sing about him, and they do praise him, but he's never worshipped, so to speak. Krishna is the focus, God is the focus, not the human being. With Nityananda, it's the opposite. Nityananda will say that he's got the same experiences as Shiva, and then he'll turn around and pretend he never said it, but it's on video of him pretending, saying that he is the same as a god, as one of the many gods, and he wants the focus to be on him. He wants the focus to be on him as a god, as somebody who's above everybody else, even though they'll never really admit it. They'll say you can be the same way as him, but really at the end of the day, he's the one who's going to be worshipped. He's the one who sits on the golden throne and tells other people what to do and collects everybody's cash. The other big difference is the focus of the religion. So the focus of ISKCON is to live a very conservative life, to live a very, materially unattached life. So they're very big against material existence. So they don't really want material attachment. They're not focused too much on money. And in fact, they're kind of anti that. They believe that there's a truth beyond that, which we're striving for, a spiritual truth, a higher taste. So the focus isn't material, the focus isn't on any kind of magic tricks. Although there's stories, I think, probably floating around about Krishna devotees doing something and who knows what else. But it's never been a focus to create some magic trick that tries to convince people or tries to show off or anything like that. The magic trick in Krishna consciousness is living a good conservative life, a good stable life. No drugs, no alcohol, getting married to one person. Sometimes it might go a little bit too extreme, a little bit too conservative. I don't think you're allowed to have sex with someone, and there's probably, even when you do have sex, I think there's quite a few restrictions. Like you only have to have sex when you have a child, and then you stop having sex again. Anyway, like I said, very, very conservative practices. These things are more conservative than Christianity in some ways. So the focus is on having a kind of good life, no magic tricks. Whereas with Nityananda, because he wants to be seen as a god, he's got to show you some godly things. He's got to show you some magic tricks to make you think that he's something special rather than a human being. Although I haven't actually seen him demonstrate any kind of magic himself, although he keeps talking about it. He imparts his magical power onto anybody who is willing to fork out enough money to go and see him. So the magic that he's showing is that he's imparting all these magical gifts on other people. And this actually gives him also a buffer, because if anybody is caught out being a fraud, he can just say, well, this guy was a fraud, but everybody else is for real. Yeah. And the focus, of course, is always on him to being something special rather than what he actually is. The other thing that's different between the two, which is quite interesting, is how large the sphere of influence of each kind of sect has been. Now, Nityananda, he claims that he's come down to earth to enlighten everybody, to shake things up, to bring everybody back into enlightenment. He's got some major claims that he has been recorded as saying. And he's been hustling from a very young age as well. But if you look at his actual accomplishments, I guess maybe he was a little bit on his way to becoming popular. Certainly in India, I guess a lot of people have heard about him. But he certainly didn't have the same influence as ISKCON has, at least not in the West. In the West, ISKCON, Krishna consciousness, has blown up. And it's blown up with celebrities, with huge amounts of temples, like huge influences. So if anything was put on this earth to spread the philosophy of Hinduism, to promote, the Bhagavad Gita to the general public of the West, it was ISKCON, and maybe yoga as well. Not Nityananda. So if Nityananda has all these claims and he doesn't fulfill them, what does that really say about him? Is he really this god you think that he is? in that scenario where he hasn't even really influenced anybody. I don't even know if he has more subscribers on YouTube than Till Swan. I gotta check that out. I don't think he has, but I'll double check that probably after I put this video up. And I think the reason for that is because he's actually been burnt. Like, he's a scam artist, and he knows that if he sticks his head out too high, that he's gonna get chopped down. Like, imagine if Nityananda started to have celebrities following him. It'll become another Scientology. As soon as he gets a big enough following, people are going to start looking at him, and people are going to start looking at his followers with a microscope. People who have a lot more resources than me to research who these people are, who these scam artists are, and they're going to be found out pretty quickly. Scientology is struggling right now because of that, because it raised its head up too high, and people took too much notice of it, and then they shut it down. You know, they came out with all these facts about it. They really analyzed it and took action against it. That's why Nityananda is keeping things on the low. You know, he just wants to influence enough people to get enough of an income to have a nice, comfortable life, and, you know, have a woman come in every once in a while and spread her legs for him. So that's his goal. So he doesn't really need a big audience. He doesn't need to enlighten the world. He's just got to get enough people to scam out of their money, and that's really enough for him. So I believe the reason why his organization is quite small, relatively small, is because of that fact, because he doesn't want to stick his head out and get cut again. Which actually brings me to another big difference between the two, and that is the kind of pricing structure for the information. Yes, I know Nityananda has his free courses or whatever on YouTube, but even if you listen to his videos, they're all focused around bringing people to his temple in India. So that is what the focus is. That is where everything that he says is driving people to do. You can listen to his videos, like even if he talks about fluoride in the water, like I don't like fluoride in the water, but if you listen to the way he's talking about it, he'll just drop the hint that his ashram just serves the most pure water, and that kind of water is going to give you that third eye opening. But you won't be able to get it if you don't go to the ashram. You know, if you keep drinking your fluoridated water wherever you're from, you got to come here and, you know, get this third eye opened by me to get all these magical powers that I'm talking about. And, you know, he'll say that with food as well. He'll say that with many things. Even his, you know, supporters that come on my channel, if you read their comments, it's kind of like a cookie cutter response. I don't know if it's just one guy doing it, by the way, but the response is the same. You got to come and see him. You got to come and see the truth for yourself. You got to go to India. You got to go there, because that's the scam. You know, that's his particular scam. It could have been something else. He could have had videos you had to buy, but that is his scam. He gets people to come to India and spend their money there, and who knows, God knows what else. But that is the deal, you know. And if you think, if there's someone who wanted to influence the world, who wanted to enlighten the world, would they really charge tens of thousands of dollars for someone to go and, you know, hear him speak in person? Is that what someone who's come on this earth, a god who's come on this earth to enlighten everybody and to create this utopia, is that what someone would do? They would charge $20,000 for a 3-week retreat? Just think about that. You know, it doesn't make any sense. At least not to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now compare that to ISKCON and Krishna consciousness. Now, while there is this drive for donations in ISKCON, and I think that's the major way they make their money. It's in the writings, I think it's recommended to donate 1/3 of your wealth or something like that. So it does get a bit cultish, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have the same structure of Scientology, for example, where you got to pay. Everything is free. If you don't want to donate anything, you don't have to. You can go to a temple. Temples are usually free, or an ashram, or they have restaurants as well, all kinds of places. They do some charity work as well. And you can go there. I don't think you'll pay more than $20. You do a bit of chanting. Maybe a guru will come and talk about something, usually about how material existence is crappy and how you shouldn't be focused on it. And then you usually get a nice meal at the end. So you're kind of paying for a meal at the end of the day. You're getting your money's worth. So it's actually a pretty good deal, you know, value-wise. It's pretty decent. It's something most people can afford. Again, they give out free food as well. I've seen them giving out free food to people too. They also don't have any kind of focus on what I call the secret philosophies, where you manifest wealth or you try to manifest something for yourself. It's really, really focused about getting away from that. Now, you may not agree with that, you may want the secret stuff, but the way I see it is if you're focused on spirituality, you gotta focus on spirituality. It's like what Jesus, he threw out the money collectors out of the temple because the temple was a sacred space to worship God, to go beyond the material existence. And that's not to say that material existence is, at least I don't see it as bad as maybe some of the guys at the Krishna temple do. And I think people should, work hard and try to make a bit of wealth for themselves. I wouldn't go too far with throwing all your money away. Personally, maybe I'm wrong. At the end of the day, maybe I'm just not. But I'm just speaking my truth, I guess, more or less. That's where I'm at the moment. But certainly, if there is a spiritual truth, it's not going to be to manifest a bunch of money in your house. If anything, spirituality is going to take you away from that. And I think Krishna consciousness ISKCON does that a lot better than Nityananda's cult does, because I think Nityananda's cult even has courses for sale to help you manifest money. I guess because you need to manifest a lot of money to go to India and pay for his other courses. So you gotta keep you gotta get that money somehow. So it might as well be from the universe, right? And I think I'll list one more point, one major difference between the two, and that is kind of the origin story of the two founders. Nityananda started hustling people when he was quite young, and he certainly made the best out of his virility, as you can see by all the sex videos out on him, and of course by other people coming out and pretty much stating what he does. Look, it's out there. All the information is out there, and no matter how many Nityananda supporters or one Nityananda supporter with many fake accounts tries to say otherwise, there's video evidence of him getting his dick sucked by some very cute girls, so kudos to him on that. But nonetheless, that is his backstory. His backstory is full of controversy. And that's not to say that ISKCON and Krishna consciousness doesn't have its own share of controversy, but just looking at the founder themselves. The founder of Krishna consciousness, of ISKCON, came when he was quite elderly. Now, if he really came down to the West to hook up with Western women at that age, I want to give him just props, because instead of like looking through a blindfold and seeing what someone has written below my nose, I'd rather have the boon of still getting hard and still being horny at that age and being able to hook up with women. And this guy traveled. I'm not sure if he was 70 yet or if he was just under, or I can't remember how old exactly he was, but he was quite elderly when he came. He sailed on a ship across to the US, probably with thousands of other gurus trying to do their thing here, not knowing what's going to happen to him, and not really expecting that ISKCON would blow up the way it has. And I think he just started chanting in the park because he really believed what he was doing, and he was ready to die in the new country that he came to, abandoning everything he knew. And that to me, that tells me that the guy was at least had some devotion. You might still claim that he was a fraud somehow. Maybe he was. Maybe he did come to spend his last years in luxury. Maybe that was his plan all along. But just from reading his backstory, and you got to make some judgment. Who knows the truth exactly? You got to make some judgment. And from my judgment, the way I see it, and from reading a little bit about Srila Prabhupada, I see a lot of devotion in that man. Say what you can about where ISKCON is now, or even where it was when it started, but one thing he does have, what I believe, is that he does have devotion, and he does believe what he's talking about. I just don't believe that about Nityananda. I think Nityananda is just full of shit and is trying to scam people out of whatever they can give him. I don't think he believes in any of that, and I don't think a lot of the supporters, at the forefront of his religion, believe in any of it. They're just trying to scam people out of their cash or whatever else they may give them. So that, I guess, brings me to the conclusion. There's probably a lot of more other differences between the two, and if you ever have experience between the two, please list your stuff below. I might actually keep this video free from crazy Nityananda commenters, because they just kind of regurgitate the same thing over and over anyway. I left them up on my other videos so you can have a look at the kind of attitude they have, and so you can see what kind of people these are, what kind of people you're really following. But I think I'll keep this channel clear for a bit of discussion about ISKCON, Hinduism, and anything else you want to talk about. So thanks for listening to my videos, and yes, if you had to choose, if you're gonna have to walk away, even if you hate Christianity or whatever, at least choose something that's a little bit more legitimate. There's plenty of Hindu religions and sects out there that you can follow. I think there's a good one that smokes a lot of pot. Is that the Shiva temple or something? Just go with that. It's better than some fraud that pretends to see through a blindfold and tells people that he can make them float and stuff.